What's happening, my fellow geeks and geekettes? Welcome to a brand new episode of Cosplay Chris, and today marks episode 1 of the Undead Avenger, the video series on the creation and the production and the crafting of my Crow cosplay. Now, this has been a long time coming. I've been doing a lot of research and development and just ideas on how the costume should look, but today is all about the face shell slash face stencil for the makeup. I originally got the idea from Studio ADI, who did Bill Skarsgård's makeup for it. They actually used a face shell stencil for the red clown markings on his face. Funny enough, this morning I actually learned that the makeup artist who did Brandon Lee's makeup for the 1994 film The Crow had a similar method. Instead of it being vacuform plastic, it was rubber. So that's pretty cool to know that they actually use that method as well. So doing this method ensures consistent results each and every time I do the makeup. So apart from showing you guys how I make the face shell today, I'm going to be showing you guys the concept makeup that I've come up with and that I've settled on and that I'm 100% happy with. But before that, let's go back to the origins of the Crow. So it was created by James O'Barr, who based it on real life tragedy in his life. Unfortunately, O'Barr lost his partner at the hands of a drunk driver, and this was his way of dealing and coping with the loss of his partner. The Crow was born. It obviously went on to spawn live action films and a TV series, and hopefully eventually a rebooted film in the near future. So the Crow makeup itself is based on the tragedy mask. So it was a lot more thinner, a lot more leaner in the comics, and then when the Brandon Lee film came around, it was beefed up a bit, the eyes were expanded, and it was a lot more softer and less hard edge. And I really dig that look. The makeup artist did an amazing job on Lee's makeup. When it's lit properly, he looks absolutely demonic and terrifying. So my makeup is based on the original source material, Brandon Lee's makeup, and this concept makeup that you see right here that was done by the brilliant Boss Logic. It is based on what Jason Momoa could have been had he have gone through with this Crow reboot film. So here is my concept makeup in all its glory. This is the final design. Now, a lot of people are probably going to be going, it looks like Sting. Funny enough, where did Sting base the makeup from? So for anyone wondering, it is very hard edge, but this is just for the initial design and for the stenciling process. For the actual makeup that's going to be applied to my face, it's going to be a lot more softer and a lot more runnier and blended into the white. So the first thing you're probably thinking is you're just going to vacuum form it and then trace it all out. We do offer vacuum forming here in Australia, but unfortunately it is very hard to get clear ABS plastic to vacuum form on. It's either black or white. I need clear ABS to see through onto the design here so I can trace around the plastic shell and then cut out those pieces to create the stencil. So I have come up with an alternative method, and that's what today's video is all about. First step is we have to create what's called a buck, but instead of being made out of plaster for vacuum forming, we're going to be making this buck out of silicone. It's going to be silicone on silicone because we are going to be pouring the Pinky Seal silicone into a Pinky Seal silicone mold. I've never done that before, so it means I'm gonna have to make a barrier, and you guys will see that in the video. So overall, very happy with the initial design. Apart from the makeup tutorial, I'll also be doing a tutorial on how I'm gonna be doing my hair, putting all the shell pieces in one part of my hair. Now, this process did include a bit of trial and error, and I do include that in the video with a replacement face shell that is the final result. All right, enough jibber jabber, let's get to it. Okay, so here is a pre-existing face mold. It includes a Pinky Seal slip cast and a trowel on mother mold. This was made about a year ago, so it is from the exact same mold as the Crow test makeup for this cosplay. So we're gonna be making what's called a buck out of silicone. Now, a very, very important thing to remember is silicone does not want to stick to anything but silicone. Now, because we are going to be making a cast in silicone within a silicone mold, we have to create a barrier. There are special sealers and releases and everything that can get quite costly, but in this case, we're just going to be using petroleum jelly, not just regularly. I'm actually going to be hitting it with a paint stripper gun to liquefy the petroleum jelly, brush it in very carefully, make sure that it's not clogging up any special details or whatnot within my face cast. Once that's done, we're going to mix up some more Pinky Seal silicone. Mix ratio is 100 to 100 pour it in, because it is going to be a solid silicone buck. Probably give it about an hour. We're then going to demold that, and then we can go on to creating a clear resin face shell, draw out the markings where the makeup is, and create our makeup stencil. Okay, now that our mold is prepped for casting silicone on silicone, we can now mix up some more silicone. So, we're going to be using Pinky Sil, which is a Part B silicone you can get from Barnes. This is such an amazing and easy to use silicone, I swear by the stuff. So in terms of mix weight, I'm honestly just going to eyeball it. Like I said, there is a lot of space in that mold to fill, because we want a solid silicone buck, which is going to make for demolding the face shells to make the stencils a lot more easy, because it will flex and then the resin will come off with much more ease. So this is the bucket I'm going to be using. This is a 3-liter bucket. I'm literally just going to be pouring Part A in, and just till I get that happy medium of thinking that double this will be sufficient enough to fill the mold to where I think the makeup markings will be. So, like I said, mix ratio is 100 to 100. I have a very special mixer here. It's a very high-tech paint mixer from Bunnings. These holes here will actually help with it to pass through the silicone, because the silicone is quite thick. You also just want to make sure to get the dregs of the silicone on the bottom and on the sides of the bucket. So really scrape around the sides of the bucket and on the bottom of the bucket itself. Now, our working time, even though we're just pouring it in, is probably about 5 or so minutes, give or take. It is quite cloudy here today and it is quite humid, so that may speed up the gel time, but I'm guessing about 5 minutes. Not that we need it, because we're literally just pouring this batch straight in the mold. So overall, I ended up going for 1 kilo of silicone with a little bit left over in the original containers, just in case I underestimated. So you just mix it thoroughly, guys. It's seriously like cake batter. Just give it a good mix and it'll work wonders for you. Now, I can already tell I've not mixed enough of this stuff, which is totally fine, because what I'm going to do is slush it up on the sides. Alright, Geeks and Geekettes, here is our silicone casting out of the mold. Now, this is the sections here that I slushed up against the mold, and the best part about it is within the limits of the black markings of the makeup. Now, if you're wondering if this is a bit crooked, you are absolutely right, especially the nose section here. That was because the mother mold of the original mold was warped from heat. But don't worry, this is not a problem at all. Once the final resin shell has been made, we can heat warp it with a paint gun and mold it over the face cast of the concept makeup. So, what I'm gonna do, grab some J-Wax, we're gonna spray it over this piece. This is gonna seal it up and act as a release agent for the clear resin. We're then going to cut to the resin I'm going to be using. That's going to be Bee Queen, but first we got to seal and release this bad boy. Okay, so like I said, the resin we're going to be using is Bee Queen resin. It is a clear resin. It almost dries sort of like a champagne color, as opposed to Supercast that dries a bone color. So the mix ratio is 100 to 100. So I'm probably going to mix up about 100 grams total of this stuff and literally just pour it all over the face. So I'm thinking 2 coats of this step. That'll give us a nice thickness and a nice even coating for the shell. We can then let it properly cure, pop it off, pop it on the life cast of the concept makeup, and then draw out and mark out where we want our stencil to be. Like I said, 100 grams for this, and then we'll do a first pour over on the silicone life cast. Obviously, using a gloved hand, just smoosh that resin into the details of the silicone. Alright, Geeks and Geekettes, I ended up doing 4 coats of Bee Queen resin. It is fully cured. Now you're probably wondering, what is all this clouding going on here? This is just what happens sometimes with Bee Queen. As you can see here, if I press on the head, you can see the air bubbles under there that have already formed. And you know what? That is absolutely perfect. It's gonna make demolding a lot more easier. So what I'm gonna do is zoom the camera out and show you guys how we crack this thing off. And the beauty part of having a silicone buck is that it's flexible and it's gonna help demold this Bee Queen shell a lot more easier. Okay, so here is the face shell completely removed from the silicone buck. Now, if you guys see here, for some weird reason, no resin whatsoever wanted to cure on this section of my nose. You can see right there. I don't know if it was a contaminant on the silicone, because keeping in mind the silicone buck itself was completely cleaned with isopropyl alcohol. So I don't know, but honestly, it's not a problem at all in terms of what we're wanting in terms of this makeup stencil. So the next step is to heat this thing up very gently with a paint stripper gun. We're then gonna place it over the concept bust just to make sure it's gonna fit nice and snug over everything, and then we can get to work tracing out the makeup. Alright geeks, I am very happy with the result of this piece here. Now if you're wondering, this may look a little bit different than the first shell casting. Well, I had to go back to the drawing board. So this here is the original shell casting, and this was 4 layers of Bee Queen. A lot of imperfections there. Could have been some contaminants on the silicone buck, and it just became very brittle. This here is 6 brush-on layers of Bee Queen. The silicone buck was thoroughly cleaned with isopropyl alcohol. It was then resealed again with J-Wax, and this is the end result. So a lot more sturdier and a lot more robust. So what I'm gonna do now is give this a hose, give it a clean up, because there is resin dust all on the inside and the outside from cleaning up the makeup areas. And then we're gonna seal it up with a gray primer, just so that there's some stark color there, and just make it look all nice and neat, and then we're gonna call it a day. And there you have it guys, the face shell stencil for my crow cosplay. Even on its own, it looks like a really creepy mask. I mean, look at that, that is just horrifying. So the good thing is the makeup is very easy to clean off the surface of the shell itself. It just requires a few wipes of some makeup remover. So guys, thank you so much as always for watching. Episode 1 of the Undead Avenger is done and dusted. Next week will be a makeup tutorial and reveal for the final makeup look and the hair. Episode 3 is probably going to be based on the trench coat. I have ordered the trench coat. I'm very excited about that. I am very excited for how this is going to look. It's going to be very different, but very familiar. Guys, wherever you are in the world, have yourselves a cracker of a day. I hope you're well, hope you're happy, be merry, be silly, and until next time, geeks, please always remember, cosplayers do it best.